Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports as ordered. Welcome. It's Tuesday night and we got some stuff to get to. We're going to talk about old kitty cat, Carl with a K. He's joining the New York Knicks. We got football reaction, NFL, college. We're going to hit everything, every corner of the country, and let's get it. Myself, 2-5, your unorthodox statistician going left so much you thought I was southpaw. Watch out, Deontay, here comes another hook. And I got my partner with me, the one and only, even killed, born in Texas, raised in VA, representing New Jerusalem. He told me out of his own mouth that Redman is the greatest rapper of all time. He is Mr. Logical. And do me a favor out there. Do not bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
And while you're doing that, go ahead and like, subscribe, review, rate, share. Do all the free things. Do all the good things. So we're going to get this thing started off with Get It Off My Chest. Now, normally, you're used to Get It Off My Chest being a one-on-one thing where one of us kind of just talks about our issues and then we pass the baton. This time we're going to have a conversation because there is news. If you look around Gotham City, there's a new kitty cat on the prowl. The New York Knicks have traded for Karl Anthony Towns. They let go of Dante DiVincenzo, so that's one Nova boy out the door. They got rid of the one and only Julius Randle. So you already know Minnesota lost the trade for the fact that they're bringing in Julius Randle. We don't even got to get into all that. Minnesota, you lost the trade. So, Mr. Logical, what was your first thought when you heard about this trade?
My first thought was like, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it because if you think about Tibbs, his bigs aren't the primary scorers. They're hustle guys. He keeps small guys that run the floor and do all the scoring, wing defenders. My big men are rebounders and they just run to the rim. Cat just doesn't seem like the player that if his shot's not falling, I don't know how effective he is. He fouls a lot. We talked about that in the playoffs. Like he fouls 17, 18 feet from the hoop a lot. He fouls at half court randomly. And when you have a guy like Tibbs who wants to play intense defense, you have a guy who seems to be kind of clumsy in defense. I don't think it made a lot of sense. I thought it made a lot of sense to keep him in Minnesota. That whole Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns really worked. I'm like, yeah, it'll work. You just got to knock down shots. And I thought it worked. I don't know what the issue was and why they felt like they had to get him out. I don't know if this factors into it, but maybe it does. His girlfriend being an influencer, I think life in New York City would be a little bit more glamorous than life in Minneapolis. So I think that maybe bolsters her brand, bolsters his, the whole like a Taylor Swift, Kelsey kind of thing. You're just in the big city. Like, I don't know, it sounds ridiculous. But that was
his brand. Like, he looked like old Joyner Lucas, what we will do.
Yeah, but your brand, it ramps up when you go to New York. Okay, case in point. Beyonce tickets for MetLife Stadium in New Jersey were like $700 each.
That's only because people dumb enough to pay it.
In Minnesota, $60. So, like, your brand is going to ramp up a little bit just because the zip code association. So maybe but like as far as a basketball move, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think the Timberwolves, it might work out because maybe Julius is a little bit more intense, but his availability is always questionable. Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't seem like a move that would be on anybody's radar, and it just happened. And like no one talked about it. It's such like a bland move that I haven't even seen anyone post about it in these sports groups. I haven't really seen much conversation going on about it. Nothing. It just like it happened, and then we went right back to football.
That's what we do, right? But I will give you the reason.
All right, let's hear.
I'll give you a couple of reasons. How about that? From each side. So if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves, It's all about the apron. Karl Anthony Towns, remember he signed that contract a few years ago.
Like
Next
228
year,
or
not
something like
this
that.
year, not this year, next year is when it really fully kicks in. So from that standpoint, the rules. If you're over the apron, the second apron, 3 out of 5 years or whatever it is, you'll lose some draft pick, or not lose it, but it goes to the end of the first round. So, which I
Which
don't
is
really
like
see as a
7
big
years from
deal.
now, but then you can get back under it if you go 2 years in a row.
Right. Right. So I think they're playing manipulation games, but this is my
Very
problem
flawed
with it.
penalty.
But this is my problem with it. You just made the Western Conference Finals last year. And not only did you make the Western Conference Finals, you took out the defending champion Denver Nuggets. You won in Denver and went up 2-0 to start that series. So you're well on your way. Like, you might need some more pieces to fill out stuff, get the offense popping, because they started to hit dry spells later in the playoffs. So that's point number one. Said if you're the New York Knicks, it's a copycat league. Who you trying to dethrone? You got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown over here, and they went out and got the unicorn last year. The big man that can step out beyond the 3-point line, shoot it from 28 feet. Defense got to come out there. Oh, I can go get me one of them.
You already had one of them.
Not as effective as Cat, not as good of a shooter as Cat. So when you're looking at it, like, think about it like this. This is how I think about it. Anunoby and Mikal Bridges.
Oh, you talking about the Knicks? I thought you were talking
I'm talking about the Knicks. Yeah,
the Knicks. Okay.
Like Anunoby and Mikal Bridges are going to match up with Brown and Tatum. So now you still don't have anyone, because Mitchell Robinson's still, he's hurt again. So you don't have a big man that can match up with Porzingis as of this moment. So now you got a guy that maybe he can't stop Porzingis, but now you're dragging Porzingis out of the paint too, because Cat rather spend his time out here. He's got that Anthony Davis in him where we see all the talent, but can you be the man? And not even the man, because you can score points, but can you be the leader? Jalen Brunson is obviously the leader and the engine of this team. So Karl Anthony Towns is going to more or less take that number 2 role. And on some nights, maybe the number 3 role, because Anunoby, they had the 31-5 record during the regular season when they picked him up. So we'll see how that works out. Also, you had to get rid of Julius Randle. Remember, like, Julius Randle is like the basketball version of, like, Tupac being like, remember when I used to let you sleep on the couch and beg a bitch to let you sleep in the house? So get out of here, Julius. But if you're Minnesota now,
you've had a move for. I can get it because Jalen Brunson holds onto the ball a lot, and I don't know what Julius Randle gives you if he doesn't have the ball in his hand.
Right.
I think it's 2 guys that are going to dribble the ball for 13 seconds out of your 24 seconds.
But also remember, there's another team that we were talking about earlier this summer that we were thinking that they were going to do something similar to this. The New Orleans Pelicans. We were talking about Brandon Ingram, but they couldn't find anybody to play ball with them, because now he wants to get paid. He hasn't got paid yet, but he's trying to get paid. So teams are a little hesitant. So, I thought Minnesota would potentially keep Cat, do the whole, let's see how the first half of the season goes, because they have Naz Reid waiting in the wings to kind of fill in that spot. The problem is, obviously, he's not as tall, and he's not as, I don't know what the word is, I guess wide body as Cat. So like, he does a lot of things that Cat does, but can he do it consistently enough to justify getting rid of Cat? But you also won't find that out as long as Cat is there. Yeah. So from that,
I guess I can see that standpoint. The thing that kind of surprised me is how quickly the deal just kind of, like, there was no rumors, it just came out and it just popped up. Like I said, I never heard any, like, rumblings.
Well, actually, when I went back,
2 players, 2 for 1, it seems like a smooth transaction, at least.
Well, when I went back and started reading articles, about it and everything, a lot of commonality that I was finding was the Knicks have been trying to get Cat at various points throughout the last 3 or 4 years. It just never worked out. Obviously that wasn't very public, because usually we hear the rumors, but but apparently he's been on their radar for quite some time. Because remember, like, I know you brought up Tibbs
probably
earlier.
when Gobert got there, it was like, okay, you don't need both big men.
Right?
Maybe they'll be willing to move, because that's when they gave Gobert 200 million. They're like, okay, they're not going to keep 2 7-footers for over 200 million each.
Right.
And you could probably think you can, you could kind of pick at that carcass that is the Minnesota Timberwolves. But then they got good,
and also, like, Cat is familiar with Tibbs. They didn't get along very well, but apparently they pieced it up and buried the hatchet, if you will. So it is what it is. But so when I look at this, I see it as partially a copycat lead. I'm going crazy. Somebody take his phone from him. But also,
thanks for your comments, sir. We love audience participation, especially when a team doesn't win.
The concern that I have,
Joe Flacco, who got drafted when Bush was still president.
Yeah, what was it? 8 days. He's 8 days older or younger than Anthony Richardson's mom, or something like that. But the thing that concerns me, though, and I know you hate this point, but I gotta say it anyway.
Let's hear it.
People always, and I'm gonna look at it a little bit differently, but people always say, "Can he handle the New York media?" Like, Cat is a very thin-skinned dude. He's a very sensitive soul. So, I don't know how
media doesn't really care about the Knicks unless they're good.
No, but they are going to be good. That's the thing.
They don't attack players individually.
But he also
that's old news.
But Cat also fits the mold of the New Yorks perfectly if you think about it. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about the New York Knicks?
They're all light skinned. I don't know.
For me, the first thing I think of with the New York Knicks is choking. You know what I'm saying? Go back to Reggie Miller.
I don't think
Cat is one of those guys that you see it and you want him, to take that next step. You want him because he's a Kentucky guy. So I'm not trying to bang on him for real, but he's that guy that you look at, like Anthony Davis, where you look at them like, I want you to take that next step. Like, I don't know if he could be an MVP in the way that I think.
I don't think what Karl Anthony Towns gives you is, I think he gives you plenty. It's just that you can't. If you got a guy that's giving you like 23 and 11, big man, winning a 3-point contest, can stretch the floor. If all I get is 23 out of you from that position, and you can play a little defense, that's fine.
Right.
But I'm like, because he's going to be a mismatch, you're not going to have many other guys 6'11" or taller that can move with him on the perimeter. So I think what he's giving you is what he like. Everybody.
Where did he go in the draft?
Everybody can't be 30 and 12.
Where did he go in the draft?
No matter where you go in the draft.
No, but I'm just saying. But that's a part of it. Like, that's a part of it.
Yeah, but
people were waiting. People were thinking.
But like, wherever people think you should get because you get drafted, and then what you actually provide, it's not substandard. He's available. He is dynamic. He shoots well. Like I said, he's a mismatch. There's only so much you can get out of players. It's like, everybody's not going to give you 30 and 12 and 5 assists. It's just not like a thing that happens in the league, especially when the ball has
the other concern.
He's not a volume shooter. He doesn't handle the ball. So it's like, he's not going to get you a lot of dribble drive, easy layup. Because a lot of the guys that are getting you 28 plus are guys that are dribble driving, getting to the rim, and getting 8 to 10.
Well, the other concern that I have,
SGA, stuff like that. He's giving you back to the basket. They don't call a lot of those post plays, and then he's giving you 3-point shots. So 23 points with the kind of options that he gets offensively, I think that's probably best going to get. Ant-Man is controlling the ball. He's shooting pull-up threes. He's dribble driving. He's being switched on, pick and rolls. Like, all of this action is happening around him when he has the ball because of the way he plays. These other guys he doesn't have those opportunities. So long as he gets you,
your boy Julius Randle, but like, my other concern is, out of his 9 seasons, he's missed that 65 game threshold 4 times, and not just missed it, but we're talking 29, 35, 54. The last 2 years he's missed substantial time. So is he starting to get to that point of his career where, as a bigger person,
is it going to be?
Is he breaking down?
I mean, more likely it's not going to go. He's not going to ascend.
But I also think that they now have the same problems that I think that Philadelphia has. Whereas, like, do you just have too much now? Is there too much going on now? Like not from the standpoint of people that need to score per se, but like they say, it's only one basketball.
As long as
Jalen
everybody
Brunson.
knows their role. If Paul, like to speak on Philly real quick,
Yeah,
if Paul George is good with scoring or getting enough opportunities to average 17 to 19 points, if that's like how much he gets the ball, and he's like, okay, I'm good with trying to get 20 points. And then Embiid is going to probably get you 30, and Max is going to get you 22 to 24, 25. If everybody's good with those numbers, it can work. That's 70
speaking
points.
of which, Embiid said he down 25, 30 pounds.
Finally, I mean, like, you can't be running around here with bad knees playing at 285. I mean, like, it's not rocket science.
And that's
but
that's the other thing. He was already dropping 50 on the Knicks on a half a leg. So so getting Cat doesn't do anything to deter that.
Yeah, but he's 23 and 11. He does, like I say, he does foul a lot, but 23 and 11 gets you a couple of assists. So I mean,
a lot of teams don't have a bench. Like that's the new NBA. Like, you look at some teams, their bench, like when you think about like somebody like the Heatles, they had like your Mike Millers and Shane Battiers coming off the bench who were just old guys that played defense. So like if we're talking about from a scoring standpoint, that may not be necessary. But
the Knicks don't have like
the one thing that the
Minnesota guys that can get you 70 points. That's the thing that the Knicks don't have.
Right.
They don't have three guys. They got three guys.
But they have guys that can. They have guys that can. Like Brunson could get you 30. Cat can get you 30.
Average 30. Average.
Well, he averaged 28 this year or something like that.
He's got to get you
27.
Again.
He averaged 27 this year. You figure Cat could get you about
20 to 23. 23.
Yeah, that's 50 right there. And then between Mikal Bridges and Anunoby, that can get
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, but that's the thing. Those two guys, Anunoby might have 10 points one night and 18 another night because they are not like scores. Whereas
you also got Josh Hart, you got Deuce McBride off the bench who can get hot. So they brought in another facilitator. They brought in your guy Campaign. They got Landry Shamet, to hit timely 3-pointers. So they set themselves up.
They're running a 2-man offensive show with 7 role players.
Yeah, they still can't beat Boston in my eyes. Like they still
couldn't beat Indiana because of that same problem.
They were hurt too in that series.
Yeah, they were hurt, but when it came to just scoring, there wasn't another guy that Jalen Brunson could give the ball to on the floor and get you any kind of buckets.
Well, I think Indiana just more or less controlled the pace in that series. And
the pace because one guy had the ball. I don't have to do anything defensively. This one guy has literally no one else to give. If he got trapped and gave it to Josh Hart, and Josh Hart had 9 seconds on the shot clock, could he slowly set his guy up and get a good 15, 17-foot pull-up? No.
Right.
Most of those guys are just getting open looks off of his passes. Well, now with Cat, maybe the two of them guaranteeing 50 points and everybody else can scrap together 60 to 65 points with the other 7 or 8 guys. I think they'll be good to go. But if you're going to have him try to get you 20-plus points, what's his defensive role?
Well, as far as Minnesota goes, I brought up the apron, and how that may have played a factor into why they made this move. Well, what that does now, it gives them a little flexibility, if you will, because, hypothetically play it out, All-Star break, you play like 50 games before the All-Star break. So let's hypothetically say they're sitting around 29 and 21 and they're just feeling like something's missing XYZ. You probably could trade Julius Randle. You could bring in someone.
Can you legally do it?
You have to wait until December 15th. You have to wait till December 15th. Okay. Because I think it's like 60 days after the season starts.
But if you sign him into a contract, I think you can trade him. Because I remember like DeAndre Ayton, that was his thing when he re-signed in Phoenix. Like they couldn't trade him until after January or something like that. Yeah. So, but that's a potential piece, and depending on where you're looking at, that's where you can re-enter. We talked, like I said, Brandon Ingram. You can re-enter names like that. Maybe there's a Kuzma out there for you, so on and so forth. But now the problem is if they had kept Cat and they still had some of the offensive troubles that they had in the Western Conference Finals, you don't really have a move to make outside of moving Cat.
Cap's
But
already
didn't
gone now.
Conley missed a couple of games in that finals, right? That kind of stacked, like made things kind of stagnant. Because
He
I
did,
personally
but
think
the main
I don't
problem
think the
was
move, even with the apron, because you can get out of it by just having 2 good years in a row, basically. You, I think it's one of those situations where teams who were nipping at success, they got a star in the draft, and then they overachieve. Very similar to how OKC was poised to run. They had like I think they were like pretty much the number 1 seed. It was like a 3-way tie at the top.
Yeah.
But you have the success, and then you start thinking like, ooh, if we just make one move, it'll get us over the hump. And then you realize you make that move, and it's like, that wasn't the move to make. If you would have
But that's
if
the
you
good
ran it
news.
back,
But that's the good news. The West hasn't changed that much. Like OKC went out and got Hartenstein and Caruso, right? But then when you really look at it, Denver, their big move was Russell Westbrook. You look at the Clippers. They just lost
I
Paul
think some of
George.
these teams pay. I think that apron that you're talking about, I think that's really putting a little fear in the teams.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think owners are probably like, I don't want to pay guys $265 million if we're going out in the second round.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. But when you just look at the landscape of the West, Denver went and got Russell Westbrook, but they lost Reggie Jackson too. You look at the Lakers, okay, Phoenix, okay.
The Lakers got JJ Redick.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But not to shoot jumpers.
Yeah.
That's what you need. You need someone
look
like
at Memphis.
JJ Redick to shoot.
You look at Memphis and you want to say that Memphis will be back because of Ja coming back. So they'll be somewhere in the picture.
Maybe they could work Zach Edey into the fold.
Yeah, Paul George is gone, so Kawhi's on his own, and we know he can't hold up. We know Harden's gonna not. He hasn't found a game he didn't want to lose in the playoffs, so you're not worried about them. The Rockets are too young. Golden State's too old. So
the Rockets are young and old at the same time, and it's like you got to pick a lane.
Right.
It's like, listen, you can't be 45 wearing skinny jeans. Like, you got to figure out something. Because if the Rockets would have stayed young and added a veteran role player like a Mike Conley type, or even like a Van Fleet without that money, but like that kind of stature where he can come in and definitely be the mentor to the young guys with the old hard-nosed coach, I think that would have worked. But they put too many genres together and trying to make a concert, and it's like, you got too many of the same thing with your young players, and then you have older players that can't match up. So yeah, Houston's going to be one of those situations. Houston might be a team you could pluck a talented guy out of, because they have too many. They have too many of those guys. So I think Minnesota might be able to make that move, but I think the move is premature.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So when you look at the West, you know what I mean, and like I said, unless you're just scared that Dallas is going to make another run, like there's outside of OKC, like, and maybe Denver, just because they have the championship experience. I don't think that there's anybody that you look at and say, oh, we ran into them, or like, oh, we got to play them.
And that's the thing. I think Minnesota brought themselves back closer to the pack.
They did.
Versus, and I don't know what you said, the apron. I don't know what the money thing is with.
But DiVincenzo helps as well. Like another wing player that they needed, because that was the problem. Like, remember we talked about game 1. I think it was game 1. They had just played Denver in game 7 on that Sunday. They played Dallas on that Tuesday, and they had Anthony Edwards chasing Kyrie around.
But he said he wanted that match.
That's fine. You don't got to listen to him. I'm the head coach. You do what I tell you to do. So but that's when they lost the series. They lost the series as soon as they put him on Kyrie, because he had no legs.
But it's kind of the same thing. New York problem. They didn't have another guy that can get you points. Like, they didn't have a guy that could put the ball on the floor and get you points.
Right.
And maybe Julius Randle is that guy. But like I said, different kind of ball handlers attract different kind of defense.
Right.
The way Cat plays, the pick and roll is like, no one's going to pick and roll with Julius Randle. It's like, why am I going to switch this?
No, I'm not going to stand out there and shoot threes.
He's going to stand out there, even if you pop. You could slip under it He's not like he's so quick he's going to get around it. Whereas Ant, if you mess up, he can step back and shoot it. Or he could dribble around you.
He shoots 9 or 10 threes a game. If he hits 4 or 5 of those, take him out to dinner and tell him congratulations. You know what I'm saying? But then switching over to the National Football League, the Shield. And yes, we are going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. But let's talk about important teams because there are 2 undefeated teams right now. 2 undefeated teams left right now because the Steelers was one of those teams that decided to lose along with Seattle last night. But we got Minnesota and Kansas City. How many people had those 2 as the last 2 undefeated teams this season? And Minnesota tried to give it away too. Minnesota, it was almost just Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, I like the resurrection of Sam Darnold. I think
is he the MVP right now?
I would.
Ref ate it.
I'm gonna say yes, just because his team's undefeated and he's playing lights out football for his. I mean, even for this season, I think he's only won over double-digit touchdowns. But the defense is doing a lot. But they did give up, like I said, it was 28 nothing, and they ended up winning 31-29. So it was shaky. I just have a feeling that Sam Darnold's gonna turn back into a pumpkin at some point. But right now, I think he's playing well.
Yeah, he's the only dude with double-digit touchdown passes right now, and he has the touchdown lead by 3. Who leads the NFL in passing yards right now?
Nah.
Geno effing Smith.
I was about to say Caleb Williams. I know Caleb had a couple of. I think he had a couple of back-to-back 300-yard games or something like that. That's why I thought it was something sneaky like that.
No, Geno Smith. Geno Smith. No,
Geno threw for damn near 400 last night.
He did. No, Minnesota is a complete team. They're buying into Flores' system. But Green Bay was able to play the judo game with them. I'm going to use your momentum against you. So you can bring those blitzers. And right now, Jordan Love's a little rusty. So he makes an errant throw. As him and the receiver aren't aligned on a specific play. But you go into halftime, you go into the locker room, you talk it out, and you come back out there and you lose that game by 2 points, and you look back at it and say, damn, we missed 2 field goals.
Yeah, no moral victories. I think he's already
no moral victories.
I think he's played 2 games. I think he has 5 interceptions, or at least 4 or 5.
Yeah, he I don't know what to do with Jordan Love. I don't know how good
they need to go back. They need to run the same shit that they were calling for Malik Willis.
But remember, he did this last year too. Remember, he didn't come on last year until around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, then he went 18 touchdowns and 1 pick over
right.
The last.
So I mean, maybe he just one of those guys like, say, Joe Burrow, who the first couple of weeks of the season has to get his feet wet and then he takes off.
Yeah, I mean, and I got to give him credit to come off injury because, like I said, it's a tough position to play. Ask anybody who's suited up for Miami this year. I like the 2 undefeated teams. I think Minnesota looks more like a 4-0 team. Kansas City looks a little bit like a 0-4 team wearing a 4-0 mask. They don't look good. They don't look fluid.
Yeah, who was that dude talking to me the other day too? There was somebody. I can't remember your name right now, but look, man, Kansas City looks like shit. You can call it whatever you want to call it. You can tell me that it's going to get better over the course of the season, and I do trust Mahomes. But for the time being, they look like shit, and I'm going to say they look like shit. How about that? Sorry. Somebody had commented to me the other day, and it was just it was stuck in my mind. But no, Kansas City, we talked about
their defense. Their defense is playing all world.
I talked about it at least. I asked the question.
Their defense is playing great. It's keeping them in games. And the same thing, like I mentioned last week, I don't know why teams do this every single time a dynastic team starts to develop. You don't keep it simple. Jim Harbaugh, 4th and a long one, pretty much 2 inside the 5, 10-10 in the 4th quarter. take the points. Kansas City had one drive or one long touchdown that was like 62 yards in the air. So you basically kept them out of the end zone this entire game. You go up 3 and you play defense. Because, like I said, the only touchdown I had was like a 50-something yard game. And Mahomes had to drop back, and it was like 62 yards in the air or something like that to get it to Worthy. And that's the only route he's going to get. The only time you're going to give up a touchdown to Worthy is if somebody just takes a wrong step. If you're playing single high safety and like that guy misses a step.
So
You're
now,
going to have the game controlled. So if you're up 13-10, I think being up 13-10 at that point felt like, to me, it felt like 19-10 with the way.
So let's stay there for a second. How big do you think this Rashee Rice injury is? Because we saw the Chiefs go last year without necessarily having a star receiver.
Well, they also struggled, but they had all their running backs. Like, they weren't hurt everywhere last year, and they weren't inept. Like, at left and right tackle, they are getting beat all game long. That's why Mahomes doesn't have any time.
Yeah, and that's why he threw yet another interception.
A bad one, and then he goes to make the tackle. Like, he should follow the Tom Brady. Tom Brady doesn't try to make that tackle if he throws a pick. He's like, whatever happens to this pick, I'm not risking a body part. And what happens, he takes Rashee Rice's knee out. And they said it doesn't look good. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's IR. I haven't heard any other report. I don't know if he's
luckily for Kansas City, they play in the division that they play in because Herbert is banged up right now. You know, the Raiders are week to week on, you know, being an NFL team or not.
Who's going to be on the line in the lineup or not?
Yeah, Denver just won a game 10-9 where their quarterback went 12 for 25. You know,
he had -7 passing yards in the first half.
Yeah, so let's go there for a second.
Completions.
Let's go there for a second and talk about the beloved Jetropolitans of New Jersey.
They are too emotional and they're too win dependent on their stability. Their stability is too dependent on whether they win or lose, not how they play. Because they didn't look great against New England. New England just couldn't move the ball. The game against Tennessee, Will Levis was Will Levis. And I think they think, and I was talking about this with, one of the parents, I probably mentioned it last week, is like, Greg Popovich says something about sometimes it's better to miss that last second shot and lose the game. That way you go back to the film and figure out why were we in a situation where we needed a last second shot attempt to beat insert whatever team. And I think the Jets, were just grinding out this victory. It shouldn't always be a grind. It should be fluid, but you don't have an offensive identity because the offensive coordinator is basically a puppet to the starting quarterback. The coach is a lame duck because the quarterback has more star power than him and can go to the owner and get him replaced. So, And then Aaron doesn't play well. He doesn't play well from behind. He's not a backpack quarterback. He doesn't say, hey, get on my back. I'm going to lead us to victory, because there's no reason why he couldn't get them in better position for a field goal. But he'll blame everybody else. It's just the whole thing is
so much time trying to undermine the head coach that he's not.
There's no one in the building he has to respect.
And I'm tired of it. Like, no more of this. This dude is a great quarterback. No more of this. He's a top 5 quarterback of all time. No more of this stuff. Like he's
not a top 5 quarterback of all time either.
When you play your worst games, this is when your leader or great quarterback or whoever is supposed to win you this game. I mean, it was 10-9. We think about games like, I remember the Monday night game, Baltimore and New England. The infamous Monday night game. Tom Brady won that game. You go through NFL history and you find these moments of this quarterback needed to make this play, even though the team looked like trash, even though the score might have been 13-10.
CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans were down 20-17 to
the only winless team in the league.
Yeah, winless team in the league, and he just battled back. And I was talking, and I was watching the game, and it's like Atlanta won their game, but they didn't score an offensive touchdown. And the only way they got in position to kick that field goal was from offensive pass interference. And then the offense coordinator called 3 long pass plays where it's like all you needed was 10 more yards to make it a 48-yard
Bruh,
field goal.
I had to wipe my glasses. Like, did this dude really have no catches?
3 targets, no catches. So,
What's the
but
problem?
it's you need play the coaching, the strategy, and the players have to all marry, and now has to work. Go back to Jacksonville for a second. Doug Peterson, they asked him about play calling. He was like, you guys want to put it all on the coaches. Sometimes the playmakers really just have to make plays. We can call all the plays we want. And people will say that's like, oh, you're throwing your players under the bus. No, he's right. You gotta catch that deep route. You gotta get open on this. You gotta make this block so we can convert this 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2 and keep this drive going. At some point, these things have to happen. Yes, the other team practices, the other team has a strategy, and the other team has good players as well. But at some point, our good players have to beat the other team.
And oh, by the way, hey, you Goldilocks, making $55 million a year. There were some bad misses in that game the other day.
Yeah, bad misses, and I get it. All these things are going to happen. But at some point when the chips are down and they're pushed to the center of the table, you got to make the right read. Aaron Rodgers consistently does not do that. He does it every once in a while. I think about the throw in Dallas to what's the ball name? Number 89, the tight end when he caught on his knee.
Jared Cook.
Jared Cook.
Yeah.
I think about that throw. I think about the 2 Hail Marys against Arizona. I think about
the problem is that he gets tunnel vision,
kicking the ball in it.
Well, the problem is he gets tunnel vision because, like, last week I was talking about how Kirk Cousins does the thing where, like, he always makes the right play. Like, you can't get mad at him because you're like, hey, that would have been risky. But sometimes I need no risk it, no biscuit, right? But like when you're looking at Aaron Rodgers, he's so emotional, I guess. Like from the standpoint, he's mad at you from something that happened in the second quarter. So you might be open right now and have a window. He ain't throwing it there.
You bet. Like I said that before. If you drop a pass, you out there just doing cardio for the rest of the game. And the defense knows that. They know who he's not going to. There was plenty of opportunities, and that's the thing. If the offensive coordinator had a real identity as a coach, they might be a little bit more, they would look a little better. Nathaniel Hackett does not have an identity as a coach. His identity is, I'm cool with Aaron Rodgers. I got my job in Denver because Denver thought they could trade for Aaron Rodgers if they get Hackett. So then I got this job at the Jets because Aaron Rodgers wanted to come to, so they hired me on. He has zero pedigree to be calling the plays that he called. And Robert Saleh has zero leverage. Allegedly. I mean, I'm just speculating. But it just doesn't look like, I mean, if you look at our thumbnail on the show, it's like, I thought that was a joke when he went to hug it, but I was like, oh, he's
and that's why I'm mad at the NFL because somehow they let the Raiders and the Broncos win 2 games, and now I got to watch them play each other this weekend.
Hey, it might be an exciting game. Who knows?
It might just be. So the Falcons won that game with no offensive touchdowns.
No offensive touchdowns. 4 field goals, special team touchdown, and a muffed
pick six,
and a pick six, and a muffed punt.
Apparently, my team just gonna score all the touchdowns. You know what I'm saying? Apparently, Jaden Daniels is Drew Brees with Lamar Jackson's legs. Apparently, I don't even know. Like.
Craziest stat. Listen, the craziest stat that I've heard. I know Mike's one of the stat guy, and I texted him this early this week. The Commanders have more scoring drives than incompletions on the season.
Yeah, I mean they went 2 straight games without punting.
More
won a game without scoring a touchdown.
The whole punt thing, I get that, but they have more scoring drives than incompletions. I think.
And by the way, you know who that sounds like? The Saints. Not really. That lasted, but I was scared.
Saying optimistic.
Marvin Harrison Jr. scored. He scored that touchdown on 4th and goal, and I said, "Here's this damn secondary again." And then, the whole rest of the time, I just had my Jack and Coke, and I didn't say a word. outside of singing "Hail to the Redskins," every so often. But as I look at around the NFL, we talked about Houston a little bit. Houston still something's missing. And when I look at some of their players, and I'm no scout, right? I'm saying? I don't sit up in the GM's office and do these things. But I was sitting there and I was like, Derek Stingley got a whole lot of Dion in him because he don't want to hit nothing. He'll lock you down on the outside, but he don't want to hit nothing. And then Will Anderson, defensive rookie of the year, he got a little bit of that Khalil Mack in him. Where like you see him for a play and you think he looks like the best player in the league, and then you don't see him the rest of the game. I don't know if that's just young youth.
I think they're riding the success wave. I think they're riding the youth, not having the mixing running the ball so they don't get to control the clock. CJ Stroud doesn't throw a lot of passes. I mean, last year he had 23 touchdowns and 5 picks. I believe one game he had multiple picks. Mm-hmm. So throughout the season, he doesn't throw the ball around a lot, doesn't put it in harm's way. Nico Collins is just you can't cover him at all.
So far, so good with Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs just gets open. So, I think they have a luxury of riches, and we look at it and probably expect it to be, 28 points a game easy. And, guys are still getting their feet wet. We saw a lot of quarterbacks go over 300 yards finally. It was a lot of games this week where guys were throwing the ball around. We saw a lot of points. I think the players are starting to kind of get into their groove. You had Houston with their 2-minute, their 2-minute drive to take the lead against Jacksonville.
I'm definitely excited for Houston and Buffalo this weekend.
I think it's going to flow week to week. Baltimore figured out that all you got to do is give it to the big dude and let him run real fast. And then,
the Bears figured out no matter who you draft, no matter what your plans are, no matter what wide receivers you sign, you win games the way that the Bears win games. You play tough defense. And shout out to DeAndre Swift. There was some talk that Roshan Johnson was going to get more involved this week. DeAndre Swift went out there and led the team in rushing and receiving. So
maybe the Rams' injuries are more prominent than we are used to thinking. Because, like I said, last year we written them off. I think you and I had them 4-13.
That might be this year.
Now, then we came back this year and completely overcorrected. Now it might be. Well, I mean, like I said, when you don't have your players, then you have a player.
I mean, no Puka, no Cooper. So I mean that hurts offensive linemen down. It happens. And they got Green Bay this week. So
DJ Moore. I don't know what his trade availability.
Well, I was going to say. I think he's about to become the next Devontae Adams.
Oh yeah, he's because it's he's out there doing cardio. It's one thing to be the slot wide receiver and you're doing cardio. It's expected. I'm gonna get 4 or 5 targets a game, maybe on 3rd and 6 if I can slip out. But he's the number one guy. And
you traded me for the number one pick.
Yeah. Caleb is not accurate down the field. I thought that was going to be the thing that was going to keep him in games. I thought the underneath stuff, because he's trying to do too much and the corners are way faster than he's used to from college. But I thought deep down the field he was going to be fine, and he is missing DJ Moore. I saw a play from training camp, and Keenan Allen ran a route and he overthrew him. It was like I think it was 1-on-1 against air.
And shout out to Keenan Allen. He actually played this weekend.
Yeah.
Had a good catch, but I didn't know that these NFL head coaches be on Instagram.
Oh, talking about come on, man. We too old, Antonio, to be out here getting caught on Instagram liking posts. That's just
hey, these guys out here making business decisions. So the next business decision is Devontae on a plane.
You guys can book it. When we did our AFC West preview, I said Devontae Adams won't go make it. I knew, because when they didn't get a quarterback and you got Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, I was like, yeah, he's not going to be happy there. I figured they wouldn't even be successful as far as getting any wins, but I knew he was trade bait. Like I said, the Jets could make sense if they had an offensive identity that would make sense to Devontae, because I don't think he can just figure, you know what, I'm going to just go get with Aaron and we're going to make it pop, because Matt LaFleur's offense seems to work with a bunch of 21-year-old wide receivers and a quarterback that sat behind Aaron Rodgers for some years, and then you brought Malik Willis in. So it could be play calling. It could be guys that sat down with Shanahan and McVay offensively and learned. Robert Saleh didn't learn anything offensively from Kyle Shanahan.
I mean, he
didn't
was
get
a defensive
notepad.
coordinator.
He didn't take any notes. Like, yo, man, can you email me something? Like something, a practice, a pamphlet, a playbook.
Which is crazy because he's got a top 3 or 4 running back room as well. So that's just odd within itself. So if Sam Darnold is not the MVP, then I guess I would have to go look down in Tampa. Did you see the whole like Tom Brady comment responding to Baker Mayfield?
About fun versus winning.
Yeah, that, you know what I'm saying? Like Tom Brady still displaying that Mamba mentality.
Yo, Tom Brady, the man, first of all, Tom Brady is 6'5", successful NFL quarterback, white guy in America. He's dated models. He has millions of dollars. They're paying him $37 million a year to talk about a sport that paid him like $300 and $400 million that made him the GOAT. He is not good. He's second to no one in his mind and on paper. So if you say anything, if you say like, I don't like how the number 12 looks on the jersey, he's going to have something to say about that. If you say something about pistachio ice cream, he's going to have something to say about that. Tom Brady don't give a fuck. And he was right. He was like, listen, I ain't come here for fun. He's like, winning Super Bowls is fun.
Yeah. But, Tampa, boy, I know there were some injuries involved, but boy, do they have Philly's number. Jalen Hurts 1-4 in 5 starts against Tampa for his career. Baker Mayfield 30 of 47, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns, second in the league in touchdowns. Mike Evans finally showed up the week that I benched him on my fantasy roster. So go figure. But, Tampa Bay finished that game with 6 sacks, and they only had 2 in their first 3 games. Philly, what's up?
It's when you don't have all your horses, you got to run with different animals. It's just, if you don't have Devontae Smith, you don't have AJ Brown, like, you got to simplify it. Like, that's I put that on Sirianni. It's like, listen, Jalen can do a lot, but no NFL team can win when they're completely predictable unless they're so dynamic that you just know, a la The Greatest Show on Turf. You knew they were going to throw the ball all around them, but they're going to throw it to Marshall. They're going to throw it to Ricky Pro. They're throwing it everywhere. Isaac Bruce going to get it. Torrey Holt was going to get it. So you knew they were going to throw it. So it's predictable, but you couldn't stop it. It's tough when you're predictable and you're being stopped and you don't adjust.
Somebody got to go. Somebody got to go. This town ain't big enough for the both of us.
You can't keep firing people. You just can't, like, at some
I ain't
point,
saying nothing about firing. I could have been talking about trading.
Who you going to trade?
QB1?
Man, you're not trading QB1.
Why not?
Anytime you mention anything about the quarterback going to a different team, I'm going to say Miami. It's a quarterback league, and you don't. Most teams don't have to. They just need better. He is successful because he was on his way to being Super Bowl MVP without that holding call. Without that holding call, I think. I think they kick the field goal, go up 3. Philly gets the ball back, and I think Jalen runs it because Jalen was running them down the field the whole way. Mm-hmm. Everybody was there. Everybody's healthy. Goddard, Smith.
That 2 years ago feels like 5.
Yeah, it's very strange how it looks, but I think the expectations are very high just because of that. Because literally, I fully believe that without that holding call, he goes down and he wins MVP of the Super Bowl, and Philly wins the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I think it happens because they couldn't stop him that whole second half. Like once they figured out, like, oh, that rollout or just a quarterback keeper or just straight up quarterback draw. But that's when sometimes you just got to be like, all right, after the first quarter, let's regroup. The game plan was this. We scripted the first 15 plays. It's not working out. Let's regroup. What do we have to do? Do we need more men in the box? Do we need to double Mike Evans? Do we need to disguise blitzes? Baker Mayfield's played a lot of football, 6 or 7 years, I believe he's been in the league. moved around. He's seen a lot. Are we giving away our defense too early? Like, what are we doing? Let's regroup and try to win this game a drive at a time. And I don't know if anybody on the sideline can talk to Sirianni that way, because I don't think he gets himself there. Like I said, I think he just believes that whatever my plan is supposed to work, and you guys are fucking it up.
So, the mark of a great coach is being able to do something dumb as hell that should get you ran out of town, but then making it all better within the same game. I have no idea why Shane Steichen decided to run Anthony Richardson when he just got knocked out of the game for getting hit in the hip. Very first play, you run him again. He gets hit. Me and you, we talk all the time about how this guy doesn't finish games. You just put your second-year quarterback in harm's way. And then you brought a dude that's our age off the bench.
Gray hair and all.
And you told this undefeated team, I don't care if the refs help or not, I'm kicking your ass either way. And before you even get mad at the refs, I don't know what the hell that fumble was Justin Fields gave up. Second of all, shame on the Indy crowd, saying screaming ACL at Najee Harris and all that. Yeah. Shame on you for that. Saying that's beyond fucked up. That's some Philadelphia Michael Irvin shit.
Oh, real quick on the crowd thing. There's something I was thinking about earlier. NFL, I know you enjoy this fan and player interaction, and you enjoy the fantasy football and the gambling aspect of it, but you have to put more provisions in place to protect the players from these dumbass fans with these cameras trying to antagonize them as they're coming to work. So I know, like, it's probably a great fan experience to see all your players coming in the building, but there was a clip of a guy yelling at T. Higgins, not yelling, but just kind of like, hey, T, man, I'm starting you on my fantasy today. I need you to lock in. And he was like, man, you might as well go ahead and bench me. But like that interaction, or when Daniel Jones was leaving the building after week 1 and guys are screaming at him. Daniel Jones is 6'5", 235 pound, 20-something-year-old man. If he gets pissed and he punches a fan, whose fault is it? Is it his, or is it the team's fault for allowing these guys to get that close? So these fans coming to games screaming ACL and all stuff. Listen, these are human beings that you wouldn't say that to their face. Najee Harris is 6'3", 240. I know I got some hands, but I'm not going to just run up on some guy with NFL strength and just talk shit like that to him. So why scream it from the 200 section of the stadium? I think it is classless. And they need to do something, because it's going to be an issue, because they were screaming at Joey Bosa when he went to the NFC Championship game to see his brother play. And the Philly fans were like screaming at him. I'm like, these are your commodities, your players. They need to be protected from people who want to antagonize them. So like that's my stance on that. I think it's just like a travesty that people literally come to the game and accost people as they're on their way to work. Like, I know it's a game, but this guy's on his way to work. You don't give a fuck about your fantasy team.
Little mini, get it off my chest, but
I just think about that earlier. It just pissed me off.
But the Steelers, and you know what I mean. And I know our resident Steeler fan is going to take this the wrong way, but I'm just going to roll with it. When you live that close to the edge, eventually you slip. Pittsburgh. The numbers look nice. When you look at Justin Fields' stat line, it looks nice. But they're still Malik Willising him. Like he's not open. They're not opening anything. They were just relying on their defense. But what happens when your defense gives up points? Because eventually it will happen.
Yeah, the guys are going to get open. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Someone's going to slip out of a break. Someone's going to get open. And the other, like I said, the other team practices too.
It's too late to try to figure out how to win these games. Now, to Justin Fields' credit, he played well. He hit the touchdown to Freiermuth. He had 2 touchdowns of his own. So, like I said, it looks good, but you can't live that way. Patriots are who we thought they were. Week 1 was a facade. It's over with. But as I look back at the NFL, though, we're looking at week 5. I am looking forward to this Pittsburgh Dallas game. Dallas has got the injuries. You got Cleveland losing a game to the Raiders, and I'm still nervous. That they're coming into Landover.
Phantom holding call.
The phantom holding call heard around the world.
That took away Amari Cooper's touchdown,
which is messed up because Amari Cooper doesn't score that much to begin with.
He was moving too.
He was moving. And speaking of Amari Cooper, boy, was I wrong about Alabama.
They almost blew it.
Now, hold up. Wait, before we go there, though. So, look. I was on record when they hired Raiders. What I'm saying? Like, you talking about Texas Tech, right? So, like, when we talk about Alabama, right? They hired Kalen DeBoer. A lot of people were down on it. I was one of the people that was like, no, this guy is a great head coach. Alabama's going to be just fine. They recruit themselves. And honestly, the way that game unfolded the other night, without being blasphemous, Nick Saban wasn't winning that game the other night. The way that game unfolded. Georgia coming back in the way that they did.
You think you would just put too much pressure?
No, I
don't think they come back. I think Nick Saban takes the air out of the ball up. I think
maybe, but I'm just saying, like, from the point of the comeback, like DeBoer called that play, and obviously Ryan Williams made an all-time great play. I don't think that happens with a coach like Saban. I don't think he allows that to just, especially come in first play out of. I just don't think he allows that to happen. You don't think he'd call the deep shot? Yeah, I don't think he would have called that. I don't think he calls any more passes after they're up 21-0. After they get to 21 points, they are running the ball with even running backs who hadn't touched the ball all year. Nick Saban's running the air out of the ball for the rest of that game. I thought Bama would slip a little bit this year because they lost a lot. Caleb Downs went to Ohio State. Caden Proctor had initially left and went back home to Iowa. He's back now. They have that freshman-studded secondary that, we saw get picked on a little bit, but they made some plays too. So, as the season goes on, they're only going to get better with experience. So, so they're doing now what I thought they would be doing next year. But we'll see. They still got Tennessee. They still got LSU. We'll see how it all works out. But what I wanted to ask you, because, ESPN style, right? Did they win it or did they lose it? So here's my question. Here's my ESPN style question to you. Let's hear it. Who did this game tell you more about, Georgia or Alabama? Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good ESPN question. I'm not gonna bail out and go push. I'm gonna say Alabama. Okay. I thought they would perform well. I didn't think that Georgia was gonna come back because I was watching it and then my stream was messing up and then I got it back, and when I got it back, the score was 33. No, when I got it back, that was after the touchdown. I like what Alabama did. I just like how they controlled the game, and I think now going forward, I think they're gonna get the lead and be like, you know what? Let's not put the pressure on our freshman secondary by giving the ball back quickly. Let's run air out of the ball. Let's run 3-4 minutes off the clock. A couple of first downs. Let's slow it down, because what happens when you get a big lead? The other team gets one touchdown and it feels like, okay. They get two, and it's like, oh, we were up 4 possessions. Now we're only up 2 possessions. Now it's like people get tense. You got these big horses up front. Give it to the big back. Let them run the ball downhill. Let them assert dominance. Get back in position. We can go 3 scores. Like, remember we'll talk about the NFC Championship game with Detroit and San Francisco. San Francisco came out with the ball in the second half, got a field goal. Detroit got into field goal range. They could have gone back up 3 possessions.
that changed the whole dynamic of the San Francisco sideline because they were, they were clawing back, even only at 3 points. So you dominate the game from the field and you let that just kind of exasperate to the sidelines. Your team feels better, your crowd is hype, and the other team feels like, okay, yeah, this is over. And then you have guys making business decisions. But if you give them the ball back and they're down 2 possessions when they were down 4 and they got the ball back and they get the ball and they get it, and then they score another one, they go up, that could be a lot. Luckily, you got a dynamic talent like Ryan Williams that could bail you out because that was all him. Like the throw it wasn't back shoulder, it was underthrown.
17 years old, and maybe Bill O'Brien was wrong. Maybe Jalen Milroe is a quarterback. I think I learned more about Georgia because I tried to give Georgia the Tom Brady rule, the Kobe Bryant rule. Where they play awful in their previous game, and you think to yourself like, oh, there's no way they're going to come out flat like that again. There's no way you're going to get that performance 2 times in a row. So Georgia had the bye week. Alabama had a bye week. So coming into this game, long story short, Alabama made Georgia look the way that Georgia makes everyone else look, which means Georgia ain't ready. The big dog is still the big dog. So Georgia, like I learned that Georgia is in trouble when they go to Texas.
Yeah, Carson, like I said, I talked about this, like Carson Beck at the college level, it's cool to have a guy that can just big guy in the pocket that can throw the ball. That's why a lot of guys, get drafted out of schools that don't win a lot of games. Like, these guys that are just big, tall, strong quarterbacks. They can throw the ball all over the place. In the NFL, you don't really need to be ultra dynamic at the quarterback position. You just need to be smart, on time, accurate, and occasionally be able to make plays in crunch time.
Mm-hmm.
In college, a lot of these guys just treat the whole game like crunch time. Like I was talking to Rachel, she was like, I don't even like football. She's like, I hate the fact you watch football all the time. I'm like, I'm gonna watch football anyway. You'll be all right. She said that in college football, if there's no one open, she's like the quarterback guy. She always does like this. She's like that quarterback. He just does it himself. I'm like, yeah, college players do that. Like it's just wide open, so it looks faster. I think the camera angles, because like the stadiums is always like the players look a little smaller, the field looks bigger, and the guys the dynamic quarterback just changes the game. Jalen Milroe, Shedeur Sanders, what's the kid out of Washington State?
Oh, Mateer. Yeah.
Mateer, like undersized, but they're just playmakers, and they've been probably doing it since grade school through high school. Now they're in college. Carson Beck isn't that guy, like who does things like that. So when you're playing against a team like Texas, where Arch Manning is a playmaker, Quinn Ewers from the pocket, playmaker, rolls, scrambles, sees it. I believe he's like 22 now, because I know he had that year at Ohio State, but he left
high school early
before his prom, so he can roll in the spring. So he has a few years where he's seen it, and I think he's a really good quarterback. So he can make those kind of plays from the pocket, but he also is athletic enough to get outside the pocket and still make plays. I don't see that with Carson Beck, and that's what's going to put him in trouble, because you're going to look at the Kentucky tape, you're going to look at the Alabama tape, and if you're LSU or Ole Miss or any of these top tier SEC schools that they have left to play, I think you can mimic what those two teams did.
So that's Georgia's 42 game regular season winning streak snapped. Their last 3 losses period are all to Alabama. Kirby Smart is 1-6 against Alabama now. But here's my last question about this before we wrap this one up.
Georgia lost their last 9 out of the last 10.
That too. Should Alabama auto number 1 now? Because obviously the AP poll put them at number 1. So should that win have boosted Alabama to number 1?
Yes.
I say no.
I mean, Texas didn't show like a flaw. Well, I guess if you think about it, Texas they keep their spot.
Well, I say no because remember before we started the show tonight, we went down some of the college football schedule for this weekend, and I said, these games look good if you're just looking at the names.
Yeah.
You see Georgia, Auburn, you see Michigan State, Oregon. It's like, oh, these are some good games, but they're not. So like when I look at Georgia And I hate, you can't, college football doesn't use transitive property, where, like, hey, Georgia played, hey, when Georgia played Kentucky, it was 13-12. So Kentucky goes and beats Ole Miss. Now, Georgia loses to Bama. So now Bama beat the team that beat Ole Miss, or that beat the team that beat Ole Miss. So now let's reward Bama. It doesn't quite work that way. And I think we're looking at Georgia as simply the G on their helmet and not the team on the field.
Yeah, but I mean, we're barely on.
Just like we did with Michigan. We did the same thing with Texas,
Yeah, they do this, but we do it every year. It happens every year. And like I said, the only recourse is to make the rankings come out October 1st, like today. But as of right now, it's gonna fluctuate. But like I said, the cream's gonna rise to the top. If Alabama is truly a number one team in the country, if Texas is number one, they'll keep battling out.
Yeah, they still got to play Tennessee and LSU.
They still got to play it out. It's not
Oklahoma.
as if it's a strict just a vote and this is it. They still got to play it out. They still have marquee matchups throughout the year plus rivalry games. So there's enough that's going to really separate it. So I think right now, if you are looking at it, you're just looking at it as a statistic, like, oh, this many weeks out of the season. Like that's pretty much it. Because over the next 6 weeks, it'll all kind of pan out.
So riddle me this. You're Mr. Logical.
True indeed.
Give me the logic behind this. How can you throw 2 touchdowns in a game and still have a QBR of 12.6?
Who did that?
DJ Uiagalelei. 2 touchdowns, 3 picks, 12 of 30.
Oh, God.
At SMU. Now, I don't know if you saw my video. I sent the video.
How was the vibe in the building? Like, I know
the building was Tallahassee West. That's what it was. We walked up in that stadium. They had their pom-poms. It's their first ACC game ever. They bring out Eric Dickerson. They bring out George W. Bush. Everybody's going nuts. Yes, and then all you see is thousands of hands going like this. All you hear is people singing and chanting. And, like, it was literally like, what the, like, I'm $1. What the fuck is 50 cents? Like, that's what it was. Like, I'm FSU. What the fuck is SMU? And as we were sitting in the stands, because, I had to let Q know that, we got the, poster out for him, like the APB, have you seen this person? But as we were standing there, we were just sitting there and I just go, yeah. Just look on this side of the field and look at the players over here. And then look at the side of the field and look at the players over there. This is like that old school, when Baby D was chasing Day Day and he like, you're going to sit on me, Baby D, stop playing. Like Florida State just looked like the Monstars. And these dudes, looked like they were basically 5'0". And yet, the head coach is calling, we talked about this with Sunday Night Football, stretch plays, toss sweeps. How about you just hand the ball off and push somebody backwards? How about you do that? So SMU, props to them. They brought it. They go to Louisville this week. So they're going to get a real challenge. We'll see how real SMU really is. We know they lost to BYU already, but obviously that seems to be a good loss, as they say in college football. Florida State gets the little Tigers, Cousin Clemens, coming through Tallahassee this weekend. And I was shocked. What do you think the spread of the Florida State Clemson game is this weekend?
Plus 15.5 for Clemson.
Hey, that's pretty close. I saw it at 14.5. And that was while DJ was still going to be playing, but allegedly he done broke his finger or something. They said, I don't really believe it, but they say that the over under is 47.5, and Clemson might score that all by themselves. So from there we gonna go to Oxford because I'm done talking about this shit. Football is suspended for the rest of the year. Here's one for you. I need you got to prepare yourself. I'm ready now. Okay.
All right.
If Lane Kiffin was black, we would say that he was playing for clicks.
Oh, I'd say that anyway.
Because Lane Kiffin
But I don't think it's a negative thing. I think it works.
Well, no,
Like,
I just think it's a thing of because his name keeps getting thrown around as like he's going to be the next Gators head coach and things along these lines. And I can't tell you one big game he won. And
he hasn't won one.
And when I look at it,
he's hired off of personality alone. Some
gave
people
up,
just make it through this world strictly off of vibes. He is that.
They gave up 63 yards. They gave up 63 yards on a 4th and 7 when their opponent was at their own 15 to our guy, Barry and Brown, who we talked about during the SEC preview show. But, they lost to Kentucky, the same Kentucky team that took Georgia down to the wire. And if Kentucky did some things like that against Georgia, maybe they would have beat Georgia. But this is also the same Kentucky team that lost 31-6 to the Gamecocks. Transitive property doesn't work.
It's a week-to-week game.
It doesn't work. So here's my question to you. This is my question to you about that situation. So Ole Miss, obviously, they lost at home. They had a chance to kick a field goal to put it in overtime, and they missed the field goal.
Jackson Dart missed a golden opportunity. They had an offsides on 3rd and 9. And they jumped off sides. He rolled left.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Instead of just throwing it, he ran it and didn't get the first down. So they accepted the offside penalty, made it 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 4.
Well, I ain't got no sympathy for him. He should have been a Ute anyway.
Yeah, he should have been. I don't know why, if you're a top tier quarterback, why you wouldn't go to Utah, especially when all the talent you get pretty much out west. But that's neither here nor there.
But here's the question that I wanted to ask.
3rd down. So yeah.
But here's the question that I want to ask. They came into that game ranked number 6. How far do you think they should have fallen for that loss?
Losing Kentucky that took Georgia essentially to the wire.
Lost by 25 to South Carolina.
13.
They fell to 12.
Yeah, that's reasonable because you got to factor in all the reason that I asked you that.
The reason that I asked you that, is not this is not bang on the SEC day. We're not doing that. But Louisville, and Notre Dame were 15 and 16, respectively. And Louisville went to South Bend, lost by possession, and they fell more spots by 1, but more spots than Ole Miss fell for losing to an unranked team that lost by 25 to South Carolina. Just thought that was odd. No big conversation. Just thought it was odd.
What's standard. We had the same conversation a year ago.
I know.
Yeah.
So the Buffaloes in 2 weeks, because they get the bye week this week, the Buffaloes get Kansas State in 2 weeks. The Buffaloes are 2-0 in the Big 12. When we had the discussion this season, preview time, I told you there were 6 or 7 teams that could win the Big 12. I didn't think that Colorado was one of them, but they're 2-0 in the Big 12. While Utah has a loss, Kansas State has a loss. Yep. Arizona surprisingly doesn't have a loss because when they played Kansas State, it was an out-of-conference game. So they got that technicality right now.
Yep.
So Colorado and Iowa State, Arizona sitting up there with the 0 in the loss column. So, it's going to be an interesting Big 12 race. They went down to Orlando and worked. Hashtag UC
I don't
Facts.
know how they were a 15-point underdog.
I think that we're still early enough in the season that people are still using last year's results to come up with data. We're talking about a team that's coming off of a 4-8 season. And when you look at who Colorado beat this year, they beat an FCS team. Granted, it was North Dakota State. They went out and got stomped
by Nebraska,
who has now since then lost at home to Illinois. Yep. They beat Baylor, who we've been talking about since June was going to fire their coach.
On the last second fumble.
On the last second Hail Mary slash, So like when people are looking at Colorado, I think they're still saying, yeah, they're winning, but they're still not dominant or they're not.
But they're
not wrecking teams until they did this.
But they have they have the playmakers that make these plays every week. So
Definitely. Definitely. I
and
mean, they got a
guess
Heisman candidate.
they got 2 Heisman candidates.
Yeah.
2 top 5 picks. I think their wide receiver core is probably one of the fastest wide receiver cores in college football.
They might be the best overall wide receiver core in the country.
They trotted out like 4 running backs against UCF, and the defense was flying around crazy. Maybe they're a little bit they're front runners. I mean, we've seen that with
and I love
Nikhil
Hill recently. By the way, transfer from Michigan. I love him.
Yeah, so we seen front runners of different sports. We saw how different it looked when Boston was in the lead and when Dallas was in the lead and when Golden State was doing their thing or when the Miami Heat was back. So we've seen what front running teams look like when they're out front. Sometimes they don't come back when they're down.
Well, we'll see. Like I said, Kansas State in 2 weeks, and it's at home. So, like, I'm here for it. Kansas State should win that game, but now Colorado's put themselves in the, hey, we got to say that this is going to be a game. This ain't Kansas State just going to walk into Folsom Field and walk out of there victorious. So, I mean, we'll see in 2 weeks. But Mr. Logical, our beloved Beehive State, the Utes got Big 12 this weekend. Cam Rising, we're back to the same thing from last season. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? How hurt is he? Is he done for the season and we just don't know it yet? Kyle Whittingham keeps all the secrets. Arizona came out there and put something on them, and you know Utah does not lose at home.
Not at all. That's not a thing that we do.
But Zach Wilson's little brother looked like Zach Wilson's
looked like Zach Wilson. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know why you just. I get it. He's a freshman and he was just playing high school football last year, but Cam Rising is not the answer. I don't know how much better Cam Rising. I maybe because he played college football for 7 years.
And he's more prone to run the ball too, you know. So like he'll take off,
get out of there, and he's a bigger body. Isaac Wilson's probably 5'11", 190. I think they probably listed at 6'1", 205. He's probably 5'11".
Could you imagine the TV network sitting there? We always joke about Iowa making the Big Ten championship game. Could you imagine like just sitting there like, ooh, we might get Colorado against Kansas State. We might get Colorado against Oklahoma State. Kansas State against Iowa State. BYU against Iowa State.
Well, BYU has some talent.
No, I mean, I'm just saying from like a ratings. Well, I guess BYU probably does get good ratings.
Get good ratings. I mean, it's the second most popular religion in the world, so I think a lot of them could be football fans. I think it'll work out. Yeah, Utah going to your backup. Normally in college, when you go to the backup, it's not that much of a drop off. But when your starter is 25 and your backup's 19, I mean, there's only so much you could do.
Right.
Just got to run the ball better. I mean, Michael Bernard had like almost 200 yards rushing the game before. This one, I don't think he cracked 100. You just got to run the ball better and control the clock. When you have a young quarterback, those are things you have to do. You can't just hope that he's going to hit that deep route or he's going to see like this is open because you didn't get that much time. He kind of came in on the fly when Cam Rising got pushed out of bounds in that Baylor game. So he's got a few games under his belt, but I don't think he's been asked to do much. And when you ask a freshman to do too much, you know, sometimes you just don't come out victorious. So
yeah, and you
hopefully have a bounce back next week.
You know, as I was scanning around the nation, you know, I landed in Sin City, where you know we had the conversation about Matthew Sluka and him leaving UNLV, and I made the comment on our last show, like, hey. That don't mean go run and bet on Fresno State because Fresno State was favored by 1 point, you know, after that happened. And don't do it. Don't do it. And what did UNLV do? Hajj Malik Willis came out 4 total touchdowns, you know, 59-14 final score over Fresno State. Ricky White, UNLV star wide receiver who made the beautiful comment about take the NIL money and just give it to the offensive line. He had 10 catches in all their games leading up to this game.
Okay.
With Matthew Sluka at quarterback.
Because he's a runner.
He had 7 in the first half of this game. You know, so by the way, UNLV, Friday night, hosting Syracuse. Keep your eye on that. Michigan and Minnesota. Look,
Little brown jug.
these guys, the little brown jug, and they look like they took football back to the little brown leather caps. Like Minnesota has the quarterback that led FCS. He's the lead. If he was in FCS this year, he would have been the leading returning passer. And they still want to play 1985 Chicago Bears style football. Michigan, progress, right? Last week, Alex Orji, 32 yards passing. This week, he got 86.
10 for 18 for 86 yards.
We're right on the brink of 100 yards. And he might not get it this weekend, though, because they got to go to Seattle to play the Huskies. So, upset alert, just to let you know. Upset alert.
Okay.
But like Orji watching that dude, he makes Shluka look like what people think Aaron Rodgers is.
I didn't catch the game. Do they even call any deep shots for him to throw?
No.
He just doesn't throw them? They don't even call them?
No. Like,
he has a big arm, right?
He throws them. He overthrows them, but they don't call it a lot. They don't have receivers this year. Roman Wilson is a Pittsburgh Steeler now. Like their best receiver is the tight end. So, but he's not like a Jeremy Shockey type tight end or, like in that vein. He's just a good football player. So,
yeah,
it is what it is. Houston, the Cougars. This is one of those things I need your logic on again.
All right.
How do you play in a city like Houston? I imagine there's a lot of talent. You're in the state of Texas.
East Texas.
They've played 2 Big 12 games. They've scored 0 points.
That's coaching.
Well, no, that's just talent on that roster. Like
that's what I'm
Dana
saying.
Holgorsen left that bare.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's coaching and recruiting because any team in Texas, you could probably take. I think Texas has 6A, 5A, 4A, like all these different levels of high school.
Right.
You could probably just go to the playoffs and just take a handful of players from each one of those teams that make the championship at each level and put out a pretty good college football product just because it's Texas. Half of them probably already 19 in high school anyway. Like they stay back a year. So you're probably really getting some mature bodies. So like when you're in Texas, if you can't field a successful scoring team in Texas, you should just stop coaching. It's not for you. Like if you can't get points in Texas, even Rice scored on Texas last year, and Texas had it. Boys were sitting under that heat. The sun was just leaning on the right side. Texas got fans and air conditionings and tents.
Home field advantage, right?
Yeah, it just got worn out. So
Mac Brown, we talked about him last week. 2 weeks ago, I picked James Madison as one of my upset specials to go into Chapel Hill.
Beat the brakes off of him.
Right. And during that, we talked about how Mac Brown kind of made like a, do y'all want me to quit? It was like that whole, like, if you don't want to be here thing, but reversed. So then they came out this week, built a 20-0 lead on the Duke Blue Devils and Manny Diaz. And, me and you were talking about the hostility between those two. And wouldn't you know, Duke came back and won 21-20. And Duke is now 5-0 for the first time since 1994.
I didn't think Duke ever was 5-0.
There you go. We talk about Dave Aranda losing his job. We talk about Sam
Pittman. Quick, NFL update. So we talk about Devonta Adams trade. Second round pick. You could potentially get him for a second round pick. So just throwing it out there, Atlanta.
Washington Commanders.
Falcons.
We talk about Dave Aranda down at Baylor losing his job. We talk about, Sam Pittman down in Arkansas. We talk about Billy Napier over in Florida. I would like to add a new name to the list.
Who we got?
Mike Locksley, head coach at Maryland. Usually Maryland starts off 5-0, 5-1, 6-0.
And then they fall apart.
Yeah, then they run into Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, the whole gamut. all that kind of stuff. But they don't play these teams every year. They play Penn State, but they don't play Ohio State every year now. They don't play Michigan every year now. So you know what that means? That means that if you win your out-of-conference games and your early season games and you get to 5-0, you might be able to win 8 games. But the problem is, as much as I like them and as much as I picked them to be a surprise team, you can't be out here losing by 2 touchdowns at Indiana. And so what made me think about that was I thought about it and I said, Maryland always starts out so early. Mike Locksley at Maryland in the Big Ten, 14-29 conference record.
It's better than some coaches.
Better than some coaches, but not for Under Armour University. Like if you want to be the East Coast Oregon, it's time to act like it. You know what I'm saying? I put it like that.
Cut the check. Phil Knight ready to pay for that team in Oregon. I don't know who owns Under Armour, but run that money.
But your guy, Ashton Genty, out there in the great city of Boise, I am now declaring this the pursuit for 26-28. 26-28 is the number of yards that Barry Sanders ran for back in 1988.
Absolutely ridiculous.
The reason that caught my eye
26-28 in 12 games.
26-28. Yes. Barry Sanders, after 4 games that season, was sitting at 813 yards. Ashton right now is sitting at 845, averaging 10.3 yards per carry. And when you top it off, you think about he plays in the Mountain West. So Barry Sanders was playing against your Oklahomas, your Nebraskas. Ashton Genty's playing against Utah State, Fresno that just gave up 59 to UNLV.
He might have another 250-yard game here in the next couple of weeks.
So as of today, he is on pace for exactly 2,700 yards. And, as we were talking about Houston and talking about the state of Texas, let me give a shout out to Sam Houston, who beat the darling Texas State, who is in talks with the Pac-12 in the Mountain West. So, UTEP joined the Mountain West today, by the way. So, Sam Houston might be next up. Coming off my college game of the week last week, the Louisiana Raging Cajuns in Tulane, Louisiana went into Winston-Salem. And guess what? The ACC did it again. Louisiana walked in and beat Wake Forest. Shout out to our guy, our Utah brethren, Bronco Mendenhall, former head coach at BYU. He was also the head coach at Virginia. Got his first win at New Mexico State this season. Just beat New Mexico State. And then finally, Mr. Logical. We talked about this a little bit off air. Rutgers is going to Lincoln Memorial Stadium this weekend. I know it's not pick day, but does Rutgers stay undefeated?
Yes.
Okay. Y'all heard it, America. Rutgers is going into Lincoln Memorial Stadium to take down the Huskers. But of course, while we're at it.
That team mood, Patrick Mahomes.
What do you think the line is?
I say Nebraska's favorite, 7.5.
Hey, you're doing good tonight. 6.5. 6.5. What you think the over-under is?
52.5.
42.5.
Okay.
So, lots of defense going on in Lincoln Memorial Stadium. So, just do me a favor out there, y'all. And I appreciate y'all spending time with us, supporting us and all that. But if y'all could just do me one favor and just pray for my Seminoles, as Clemson's coming in with some bad intentions, so I don't even know what to do with that game. And, Ole Miss, you're not off the hook either. They're a 9-point favorite. They're going down to Columbia to play the Gamecocks. So I'm going to have my eye on that game, Shane Beamer and the gang, and see how that turns out. So,
get the ball to Harbor.
Bama, like, who does this, right? Like, you be trying to, like, we talk about, like, it ain't rigged and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, so the week after Bama plays Georgia, they get Vanderbilt. Who came up with that?
Nick Saban. Nick Saban called these shots 10 years ago.
Yeah,
this is the schedule I want.
That's nuts. But hey, we will be back Friday with picks, and Mo picks. Me too. I hope they both lose too. You know what I'm saying? But you know, we'll be back with picks, and Mo picks. You know, and we're going to be talking a little bit more NBA. We're going to get into some preview. You know, like I figure maybe we'll talk about the Eastern Conference. We'll look at the Eastern Conference and break that down. And, you know, we'll go from there. But, you know, do me a favor again, one more favor before you get out of here. If you haven't, like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things.
You can get in the comments and argue. I'm good with that, too.
Yes, sir. We love you. We see you in a few days. As Mr. Logical leaving me hanging. There we go. Peace.
I was checking on the chicken.